Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today because we are embarking on a totally mind-bending exploration of physics, planetary destruction, and the invisible glue that literally holds our reality together. We're going to jump right in and break down exactly what would happen during 7 seconds of absolute, unprecedented chaos. Honestly, get ready because this is fundamentally going to change how you look at the ground beneath your feet.
So here is our high-stakes question for the day. What would actually happen if gravity just turned off? Like a light switch, for exactly 7 seconds. We rarely give gravity much thought, right? It's just a constant in the background. But what if it wasn't? And I don't mean a slow decay. We're talking about an instantaneous, complete disappearance of the fundamental force that anchors our oceans, binds our planets, and keeps the atmosphere wrapped around our world.
All right, let's set the clock. T-0. The switch is flipped, and gravity drops to absolute zero. In that exact millisecond, the unseen pull that draws objects toward one another based on mass and distance, it's simply gone. Life is just continuing as usual, and then, suddenly nothing is anchored anymore. The countdown to doomsday has officially begun, and I've got to tell you, the very first thing you'd experience is going to completely shatter your expectations.
Section 1. The illusion of floating. Say goodbye to the graceful astronaut myth. Whenever we picture zero gravity, we kind of imagine this fun, bouncy castle scenario, right? Where we just gently float upward out of our chairs. But the terrifying reality? You are launched sideways at supersonic speeds. Why? Because of a little thing called inertia. The Earth is spinning, and you are spinning right along with it. When gravity disappears, you're no longer being pulled downward, but the planet sure doesn't stop rotating. You instantly become a projectile, traveling in a perfectly straight line tangent to the surface of the Earth.
To put this into perspective, let's look at this number right here. 460 meters per second. That is roughly 1,000 miles per hour. If you happen to be standing near the equator when that switch is flipped, that is your instantaneous tangential speed. You wouldn't just float up, you would be violently thrown sideways. Within a fraction of a second, you'd be moving so fast horizontally that because the Earth is curved, the ground would literally drop away from beneath you. People, cars, buildings, trees, basically anything that isn't perfectly bolted to deep bedrock would just become a chaotic cloud of high-speed shrapnel.
Let's map out our 7 seconds of chaos on a quick timeline. At exactly 1 second in, you hit that instantaneous weightlessness and get that deadly lateral launch at up to 1,000 miles per hour. By second 3, the very crust of the Earth begins to violently crack and shatter. And then, at second 7, gravity snaps back on. We'll get to that terrifying conclusion in a minute, but first, let's dive into what's happening beneath our feet right at that 3-second mark.
Section 2. Explosive planetary decompression. The Earth is an omnidirectional spring.
I want you to think of the Earth like a giant omnidirectional spring. We just talked about what happens to us on the surface, but we really need to shift our focus to the massive, catastrophic scale of the planet itself. The Earth only exists as a single solid sphere because gravity binds it together. It compresses the crust, mantle, and core into one stable structure. So, step 1, that immense compressive force completely vanishes. Step 2, the molten iron core, which is incredibly dense and usually kept compact under immense pressure, instantly expands outward. It desperately wants to decompress. And step 3, this massive expansion pushes outward against the mantle and the solid crust. The entire volume of our planet tries to expand by at least 5%. The Earth effectively turns into the mother of all fragmentation grenades.
And take a look at this terrifying speed, 8 kilometers per second. For context, that is the speed of sound in solid rock. That is exactly how fast the explosive decompression from the core would travel outward. The crust would rip open and fracture into shards at 8 kilometers per second. Tectonic plates would split apart, whole continents would fracture into floating fragments, and magma jets would just race amongst the shattered crust. The ground wouldn't just fall away, it would explode outward into space.
Section 3. Oceans and air escape. The loss of our most vital resources.
Okay, so we're now hitting seconds 4 and 5, and things are turning into a complete sensory nightmare. First off, with zero gravity, water pressure drops to 0, which causes liquids to spontaneously boil at room temperature. But at the exact same time, the oceans are lifting into the sky, forming these giant mountainous walls of water just floating above our crumbling cities. Meanwhile, the atmosphere, it simply slips away into the vacuum of space,
Oxygen disappears, making it literally impossible to breathe. And as that lower atmosphere rapidly decompresses, it cools asymmetrically, creating these terrifying, brief hurricanes just before the air gets too thin. You essentially have boiling seas floating in the sky while you simultaneously suffocate. It's wildly chaotic.
Section 4. The brutal return. T plus 7 seconds. Gravity snaps back.
Now you might think surviving the sudden weightlessness or the exploding crust was the hard part. Actually, scratch that. The real danger is the violently instantaneous restoration of gravitational potential energy. Absolutely love this quote pulled directly from our source material because it perfectly, and kind of grimly, summarizes the reality of this moment. It says 7 seconds of fun, then absolutely nothing as the sea and the lava compete for your corpse. You see, during those 7 seconds, everything, the oceans, the buildings, shattered continental plates, and you moved upward and outward. You all gained a stupendous amount of potential energy.
And the moment gravity returns, the entire planet basically turns into an enormous captive bolt gun. Everything that drifted upward is suddenly yanked violently back down at 9.8 meters per second squared. It's a massive piston effect. Those floating ocean walls, they come crashing down as mega tsunamis. The fractured tectonic plates slam right back into the expanding magma. If you are somehow miraculously still intact at this point, the floor is essentially coming up to get you at supersonic speeds.
It really all comes down to the drift versus the crash. During the drift, all that mass gained an immense amount of gravitational potential energy. But when the crash happens, all that energy has to go somewhere, right? It is instantly converted into kinetic energy, and then directly into heat. The sheer friction and impact of the entire Earth crashing back in on itself wouldn't just smash things. The thermal energy released would literally be enough to return the Earth's surface to a molten state, a state it hasn't seen since it first formed billions of years ago.
Section 5. Gravity, our invisible glue. The framework of the cosmos.
So that is what happens to Earth. But if gravity were to permanently vanish, the cosmic effects are just staggering to think about. Earth's orbit totally relies on the sun's gravity. Without it, Earth shoots off in a straight path into the void, freezing completely solid within days. Satellites and the ISS, they instantly escape orbit, instantly unraveling all global communication. But it gets even crazier. The sun is in this constant, delicate tug of war between expanding nuclear energy and compressing gravity. Without gravity, the sun acts like a released rubber band and just violently explodes outwards. And finally, because gravity fundamentally shapes space-time, the very passage and measurement of time itself would collapse without it. No orbits, no seasons, no rhythm of day and night.
Which brings us to our final lingering thought. We barely survived a 7-second thought experiment, but what if the switch never flipped back on? Without gravity, there's no chemistry. There's no stars, no planets, and no time. It's technically the feeblest of all the fundamental forces, yet it is literally the only thing keeping our reality intact. So, the next time you drop your phone or find yourself complaining about walking up a heavy flight of stairs, just remember, that invisible force pulling you down is exactly what is keeping you and the entire universe alive. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.